What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this POV review by Autobahn. My name is Max, and today we are taking a look at the all-new BMW 550e xDrive. This is the most powerful petrol version you can get in the 5 Series until the M5 will be here, and it is also replacing the 545e and the M550i, probably. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I'm guessing they won't be bringing back the M550i. So this has to be a car with many faces, and it is. It really is. So it has an ugly face here, but that's not what I mean. I mean, it has a lot of different characters. And today I'm going to show you around it, and then we'll take it for a drive towards the Autobahn for an Autobahn blast. It is a Sunday today, so it should be nice and quiet over there. So let's start with the spec and the design. You guys know I'm not the biggest fan of the new 5 Series. We've covered it a couple times, and it's been a few months, and I'm still not really... I haven't gotten used to it yet. But I will say the Chris Bangle E60 5 Series was also met with a lot of pushback, and now I kind of love that car, and I think it's quite beautiful. So who knows, in 15 or 20 years we'll be like, oh yeah, the G60, that was a beautiful car. You never know, you never know. So we've got the iconic glow grille. I don't know why it's not on now, but it does have the illuminated grille. And we have a lot of high gloss black plastic around the car, which I also don't think is doing this car a favor, to be honest. In combination with this Brooklyn gray, I'm not sure it works. I don't think it looks like expensive enough and luxurious or I don't know, premium enough. But hey, that's just my opinion. Let me know in the comments what you think. This is, I think, the 3rd or 4th video we're doing with the G65 Series, so maybe you guys have gotten used to it by now. New headlight design, of course, with the new DRLs in the arrow shape. Bonnet shaped like the M3's bonnet, basically, a little bit. Kind of a new BMW thing now. And then we have these 20-inch M Sport wheels, behind that M Sport brakes, because this car has the M Sport package and the M Sport Pro package. Also have these 245 section Pirelli P0s, and you've got adaptive dampers on the 550e. You've got lower ride height, 8mm, and air suspension at the rear for the PHEV models to compensate for the weight of the battery pack, probably, which sits right there. So rear end with the new tail lights, and you get an exhaust with the 550e, but it's over here. It's like a diesel exhaust. It also kind of sounds like a diesel a lot of the time, so maybe that's why they did it. You do have this diffuser thing with like exhaust spots, which I don't really understand. Why not make an exhaust exit for a 550e? Now it looks like an i5, looks like an EV. I don't get that. So boot 520 liters, which is quite a useful space, and as you can see, it has a low floor, so it's not hampered by the battery pack, which you usually have in PHEVs. And now let's move on to the good part, because this is the B58. This is one of the best engines BMW has ever made. 3-liter inline 6, 313 horsepower in this version, and 450 Nm of torque. Then you add 197 horsepower electric to that, and you have 489 horsepower and 700 Nm of torque, that is seriously potent. It is a really good drivetrain compared to the 545e. Of course, both electric power and range and the power from the B58 have risen. So you had 394 in that one, and you have 489 in this one, so almost 100 horsepower extra, and you really feel that. The car is heavier than before though, so it weighs like 2230 kilos. Which is quite heavy, but you have enough power and chassis capability to make the car feel smaller and lighter than it actually is, because you also have 4-wheel steering, which takes half a meter off the turning circle, which is quite nice. The car is very big though. This is like it has the footprint of the last generation 7 Series, and you really feel that. It both in a good way and in a bad way. It's very refined, it's very practical, it's big, it's luxurious, but it also means that it doesn't feel as light on its feet as like a G30 5 Series could feel, the previous generation. So that is kind of, yeah, they're moving away from that and moving more towards 7 Series. And you can also see that the 7 Series has moved more towards like Rolls-Royce size and driving style. So yeah, it's all moving up basically, which I think for the average 550e buyer will be a good thing, because they will be driving it as a company car. They will be using the electric power, and yeah, it just, I think for a lot of people it makes sense. For me, I find it, yeah, a shame, but that's just me. So interior wise, we've covered this in length as well. I'm not a big fan of the design and of the materials. I think the plastics are a bit too cheap. Some of the operating things, this is too cheap. The buttons feel cheaper than before. You don't have a beautiful speaker cover down here anymore. You just have it up here for the Bowers and Wilkins audio. It used to be absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, and they kind of went like, okay, we don't need the bottom half. I think it's not progress, basically. Compared to a well-specced G30, this feels less of a treat to myself, right? And I'm not alone in that opinion. So yeah, I think BMW needs to step it up for the next one. You have your controls down here with the iDrive controller. I hope they will keep that for as long as possible. And you have these haptic feedback buttons, which are not great. You have a couple here as well. They regularly take more than one try to hit. If you turn that on, you also have the interaction bar with the light units that starts flashing, and it does other stuff as well. It's a lot of gimmickry for me, right? It feels like they're distracting me from other things that are not that great anymore, which I think is a shame. So iDrive 8.5 in this car. We have the shortcuts on the left and on the bottom here, which is a big improvement over the first version of this system. But still, I find this very cluttered, and you regularly are spending time to do something and taking your eyes off the road, both for this, and I don't think that is a good thing. We also have the comfort seats in this car, which are really great, very comfy, and you have a wireless charger here on the left. The right is not a charger though, which is kind of weird. I was expecting it to have both sides. And this car also has the BMW individual merino leather, which is very, very nice. Definitely recommend getting that. It's super soft. Yeah, very lovely. So if we start her up, we start up in like a regular mode, personal, I guess. Yeah, that's like comfort mode, which starts you up in EV mode. You have up to 90 kilometers of electric range, which is a little bit less than the X550e we drove, but that is also because the battery pack is a little bit smaller. So this is like 19 kilowatt hour and the X5 is 25. So you should be able to do like, I don't know, 80 kilometers, which is definitely a lot, and probably enough for most people. Okay, so let's go for a drive. We'll start in personal mode. See, it took me 2 tries again to get back to home. And it's not BMW, that's everyone basically who's doing that with those haptic feedback buttons. They're just not as dependable as regular buttons. So we're driving in electric mode right now, which you can do up to I think 120 or 130 kilometers an hour, which is very nice. And with that 197 horsepower, you have more than enough to move the car and drive it on like regular, in regular traffic, your commute, whatever. You can do that all electrically. They also added a shortcut to disengage the speed limit warning, which is very nice, because that is super annoying. It starts bleeping when you go like 1 or 2 kilometers over. It's horrendous. So anyway, let's go to the modes. As you know, you have a couple of idiotic ones, but we'll just use sport mode, which tightens everything up. It also affects the power steering, because let me just do a bit of sound first. So yeah, there's not a lot of sound coming from this, and the sound that is coming from the engine is kind of diesely. I don't know what is happening with that. The B58 used to sound a lot better, but in this it just, I mean, it kind of sounds like a V6 diesel. I don't know what's up with that. But anyway, back to personal. I think the steering is a lot lighter, but it also might affect the rear wheel steering, because in personal it feels like super light, and it's kind of weird. Like, the car is so eager to turn, so that feels kind of weird. But it also means, as I said, that the car feels a lot smaller than it actually is. And if you go to sport mode, everything sort of becomes heavier, the throttle response is quicker. Gearbox in sport as well. We've got the ZF 8-speed with the electric motor integrated into the gearbox. But because you have that electric power combined with that B58, it's just, power delivery is always instant. It doesn't really matter in which gear you are, it goes. It's very impressive. So 0 to 100, 4.3 seconds. Build torque, there we go. And that's 100. It feels kind of weird. The gearbox shifts in this weird, like, lurchy fashion. But yeah, 4.3 is quick enough for a non-M Performance 5 Series, I would say. Also, handling is very impressive. As I said, it feels smaller than it actually is, but it kind of switches between these two characters, between the comfortable 7 Series in comfort mode and the smaller, sporty 5 Series in sport mode. So that's kind of impressive. You also don't really feel that weight. So cornering speed is relatively high, even though we have P0s, which are not the best tires, but it just kind of sticks. And also when you exit the corner, you can get on the power so early with that xDrive. And you feel that electric boost immediately when you get out of the corner, which is very nice. So onto the Autobahn, where it is also very happy. We did 100 to 200 in 10.3 seconds, which is rather quick. It's, I think, 1.5 seconds faster than the previous 545e. It's also around the same time as the pre-facelift M550i with the V8. So yeah, performance-wise, it's quite impressive. It's also very comfy and nice to drive on the Autobahn. I mean, this is just very good, very comfy, very composed. Limited at 250 kilometers an hour, of course. This is the limiter, which is also 250 kilometers an hour GPS, which is good, because that was not always the case recently with BMWs. But yeah, it's just very, very impressive. I mean, if you regularly plug in this car, you will get really, really good fuel economy. And if you want to get after it a little bit, it definitely doesn't disappoint. And another added benefit is that with this generation, it will be available as a touring, a 550e touring, which is like, all the car you need basically. The previous generation was not available as a touring with the 545e, which I always found really weird, but it is available now, so that is also nice. So what remains really is the fact that it just doesn't look very appetizing. It's a little bit disturbing to look at, and the interior also is not really my thing. It's too tech heavy and it just feels cheaper than the previous generation, but all the other stuff basically is really very impressive. So there we go again, picks up well. Even in sport mode, the engine is not that loud. You have just enough 6-cylinder sound to be able to enjoy it a little bit, but it's not intrusive. It's also quite quiet in here, which is also nice. That's very comfy. So we've depleted the battery now. As you can see down here, we have 0 kilometers of range. You do sometimes still get some e-power, but sometimes it's limited. Let's see. So we still have full power now, but if it goes down to like 330, you kind of lose out on a lot of the performance. But as long as you charge it up at home, it shouldn't really hurt you that much. And if you drive it in sport mode, it also charges up the battery to like 6 or 7 kilometers quite quickly. It doesn't really go beyond that, but it is kind of useful to have a little bit of electric range after a little bit of driving. So now you can see it's at 320. That means like electro power is basically gone. So I'm going to end it here. Hope you enjoyed this video. You can subscribe by clicking the big button in the middle. You can also check out this video, this playlist, and I'll see you at the next one. Bye.